get the formal intro out of the way, and then we will let it rip. Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you are doing well, and it's time for an exclusive conversation, fresh off the release of their latest full-length LP, Revengeseekerz. We have Jane Remover with us on the stream. We're going to talk about the new LP and anything else that comes up in the conversation. Jane, thank you for taking the time.
Of course.
It's
been I'll always make time.
It's been a minute.
That's true. I think the last time I talked to you, other than that time I met you last summer,
right.
Last time I talked to you was like probably like 3 years ago or some shit.
Yeah. I mean, totally different era. Was I one of your first interviews? How many interviews had you done at that point, like around the time when Frailty was kind of popping off?
I don't know. You were like definitely one of my first interviews.
Yeah, that was definitely that was a funny connection that we had at that point. You still bumping that self-titled Zendaya record? Still feel
lucky. I gotta get back on my shit, but I still like it as much as I did before.
Good. That's good that you're staying yourself through all the changes, through all the everything. It's like you were Zendaya stan then, and you're still true to yourself at this point. You're still riding with Zendaya.
Of course. Like, how could I not?
And still waiting for the eventual.
I'm waiting for the follow-up.
Follow-up. And with your profile kind of growing in the way that it has, I mean, you're getting close to a time when maybe you could like hit her up and be like, hey, would you want to collab? Like, would you do a feature or like something like that?
That would actually, but she's too busy acting.
If you had a really clear idea in mind of what you wanted and you just approached her and just like kind of threw it her way, you should throw it down in the studio and just sort of like, she's probably still got the singing chops.
No, yeah. I mean, like, I don't know if you've seen Euphoria, but like she was like singing in the first season.
Right. So she still got it, just come through with a clear, reference, and she'll just lay it down in 15 minutes. It'll be done. I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility.
No, exactly.
But yeah, the new record is out. Obviously it is, it's quite different from everything else you've released up until this point. Especially coming off of, that new venturing project that was, quite rock oriented and lo-fi and everything like that. How do you feel like for you, the reception has been so far, and did it match like your expectations?
For what, the venturing or the Revengeseekerz?
The Revengeseekerz.
I don't know. I mean, like, honestly, like I didn't really expect anything. Honestly, like, because I kind of like, it's not that I don't look at it. Like, it's not that I don't look at comments or like I don't look at streams, but like, I kind of like, I just don't have any expectations anymore because I'm kind of just like, I got what I wanted out of this, which is just like to live off of it. So now I'm kind of just like, let's see where this goes. But like, I guess like TDR, like I am like kind of overwhelmed by like how much this is all being. This is like this moment's looking huge as fuck to me at least. But
no, I'd like to kind of jump into that as an idea because I do think it is like a theme that comes up pretty regularly in your music. I mean, to kind of jump right into it. I mean, do you feel like living off of what you do and just doing it, the act of kind of creating music and producing music is like in and of itself, like the gift of what you do? If you could do what you're doing right now, but subtract out of it entirely, like the fame and attention that comes with it, would you do that?
Maybe. Cause I do like attention. I do like attention, but.
Right. Well, I was going to say like, there are moments where it sort of seems like you're a bit skeptical of the attention that's on you, but simultaneously there are also moments on this album, where like you're singing about people saying your name and so on and so forth, where you're almost like reveling in it,
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's a struggle finding balance between those two feelings for you and yourself at this point in your career?
No. Yeah. I mean, like, it's probably, I think it also has to do with like the attention that's like that comes from being in this part of the music world, like it's so internet based, so like the fans are all really internety, and it's like obviously like you feel the love when you go to the shows, and it's like this is like actually real. But then it's like you go online and it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I sort of like I get exactly what you're saying. Like, and I feel like everyone in chat does as well. But like, if you could, I don't know, put into words from your own perspective of somebody who's having this experience themselves, um, like to you, what separates the idea of an artist who's more existing or more popular in the realm of music that you are, where it's kind of like defined as like, oh, this is more internety, this is more internet, as opposed to like, I don't know, Sabrina Carpenter, who we were talking about for a hot
We were
second
just talking about, yeah.
before we hopped online. You know, I think that's an artist who I think a lot of people would agree. Like, yeah, that's a real artist with a real IRL following and so on and so forth. But I mean, I don't know. When we met last summer, that was just after a JPEG Mafia show. And while obviously, you know, he draws a crowd of a certain size who, you know all the words to his songs and so on and so forth. The people who were there were going just as hard for your set too, knew most of the words to most of the songs. And
no, yeah, that was crazy.
And that's, I mean, that's just as much a reflection of real life engagement than, you know, as going to a Sabrina Carpenter show and everybody knows the words there. So, you know, aside from just audience size, what do you feel like categorizes you as an artist who's like, oh, this is just internet. It's very internety. My fan base is very online.
Well, I mean, I feel like, you know, if you asked me this like a year and a half ago, I would have dodged this question or like said something different. But it's like the music does sound like online. You know what I mean? Like the sample usage is like it's inaccessible, or like it's inaccessible to a degree because it's like, at least for Revengeseekerz, like it's really catchy. Like it's just as catchy as it is like kind of inaccessible. So I guess that's like the middle ground. But I don't know. I think also just like maybe the branding of it. I don't know. None of this like is like a deterrent for me. Like shit, I don't mind. I would have minded probably like a year and a half ago because like I just didn't know. You know what I mean? Or like I feel like there's a middle ground between like trying to like evolve past the internet, but still kind of like keeping true to yourself. So I feel like, I mean, because also like, why would I lie? Like I like grew up on the internet, you know?
Right. You feel culturally like you're a product of it.
No, exactly.
You know, let's there's a couple different directions off of that we can go into. Do you mind, and you could say no to this, or I'll sort of like, you know, dance around specifics here, but do you mind if I sort of like press you on specifically some of the samples on this record? I don't know if that's like, you know, a taboo for, you know,
I mean, like, I don't think any of it is,
reasons.
I don't think any of it's like copyrighted. So I guess so, but.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to, I guess like get into some of those reference points because I found the ways that you were approaching sampling on this record really interesting. I mean, I come from an era where a lot of the sampling that I was used to was based mostly in like hip hop and electronic music. And a lot of those samples were done of very popular songs and artists that were super well established and that sort of thing. But I mean, a great deal of the samples on this record not only come from like your previous material. I mean, you could even call them interpolations in a sense, but there's just a lot of samples coming from either niche online culture or video games. And I guess I just wanted to sort of see if there was any kind of draw to that stuff for you that makes you put this in your music because you kind of like feel, I guess, a personal or a thematic connection to it, or if you feel like it's just a good sound. For example, you know, I know, you know, on one track, the lead single to the record, you were using the Palkia cry from Pokemon, if that is in fact the case. And I just sort of wanted to know, like, what exactly drew you to that? I imagine gaming is where you probably first heard that. And, you know, what makes you come back around on it at another part of your life where you're producing music and you're like, I got to throw that into a song?
Well, okay. So it's not really as intentional as it sounds because it's like, yeah, like I did like play these games growing up and like they do like inspire me to a degree, but it's like I kind of just like have a sound bank on my computer where I was just like kind of browsing through all the like whatever sounded good. And like low-key, like the Palkia cry is like one of the more like percussive, like metallic sounding ones, I guess. So I was like, ooh, let me use this as like a perk or like an impact or something. I mean, like coincidentally, it's like, yes, this is from like one of my favorite franchises. You know what I mean? But I didn't really think about it like that. But
Hmm.
that was like, I think like JR was like the second time I like used that in a song, and then like
Hmm.
I kind of just like went a little bit ham and just put it like it's on like every song on the album except for like one or two.
Hmm.
But it
Like,
doesn't even like it's kind of like lost its meaning to me. It's kind of just like a cool sound now.
oh yeah, yeah, you're just hearing it like so many times out of that context. Like in terms of frame of reference and time period here, like what is your process, or sort of like what state are you in when you're in a place where you hear something like that and it's like, oh, I need to just throw that in the sound bank? Are you just like
Yeah.
scanning through things that you like or through the internet, just like finding random sounds and then sort of like putting them into a folder, putting them into a bank, and then coming back to it later at some point when you're not in that mindset and just picking out things and be like, oh, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. That sounds cool. And just grabbing things that I saved or archived for later?
Yeah. I mean, like for the most part, it's like games that I've played, but like sometimes I like go over to a friend's house and they're playing a game, and I will be like, I like the sounds on this game. What's it called? And then I'll like go on like that sounds resource website.
Got
But
it. Got it.
I mean,
And
like I think that's like the only like non-musical samples on the album though, because like the rest of it honestly is just like me sampling myself. It's not even like copyrighted shit.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Just to before we get into a little bit of that, though, I wanted to ask probably a basic bitch question, but at this point, and I'm sure it changes sometimes, but like favorite Pokemon at the moment, preferred
Ooh.
Pokemon that you're really into.
I mean, like, okay, I like Ampharos. I feel like I might have said that like on one of my streams before,
Hmm.
but I don't know. It like I have so many favorites. Like I got like Piplup on the back of my phone case right now. Like,
Okay. No,
but
thank
I
you for
like
answering that.
Metagross. Metagross is fire.
Yes, Metagross. The,
Wait, what's your
the
favorite?
Journey Together has a good Metagross card that just came out. I'm partial to Iron Hands recently. A
Ooh,
lot of the future Pokemon, Iron Leaves, that sort of thing. I also like the Blaziken card they came out with recently, and the new Zacian. I like Zacian.
ooh. So you're
Zacian's
into the
good.
cards? Okay.
Into the cards, Archaludon I think is sick. As far as like older Pokemon, because I remember the original 150 that I really liked. Gyarados, Onyx, Slowpoke. Those are the ones that I vibe with.
What's your favorite starter?
Um, I think it was always Squirtle. I always started with Squirtle.
Mm,
I liked starting with the water Pokemon.
so you like Blastoise?
Blastoise, yes, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah,
No, you
yeah,
get it.
that was my vibe. um, uh, Going into some of the samples you do of yourself, though, one that most definitely stuck out to me was on Star People, where I believe you pull a guitar part from Famous Girl. Is that the case? Is that like a similar guitar part or something like
I've been
either
seeing
literally the
that, but
guitar
it's
part,
like
or is it just similar sounding?
it's just similar sounding because
Oh,
like
okay,
I like it's all like unique playing. I'm not like taking any stems or anything, but it's like
got it, got it, got it.
it does sound similar though because like little descending thing. No,
Mm,
no, 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 no.
yeah. Well, I think the samples of your own work kind of like present an interesting sort of dichotomy, because I feel like given all of the radical change that people have seen within you personally and as an artist since like the Frailty era, and then also knowing on top of that you have all of these other music projects that you're also kind of like borrowing from and balancing at the same time, and you're kind of presenting them in a way to your fans is like, these are different sides of me or different like modes of my creative process. And in a weird way on this record, it's all kind of like coming together in these like different samples and references and chunks and bits like that. And I guess like I wanted to know from your own perspective with a record like this being created in the way that it is, do you feel like you want your fans to sort of like see all of these projects and all of these albums as like vastly different expressions from, your creative mind, or is it all sort of like a network and it's all kind of like connected, and it's all sort of like a part of, I guess, like a community of works that all sort of like are maybe sister albums or cousin albums or something like that?
Mm. Honestly, I never thought that far. I mean,
Mm,
like I've kind of like let fans like draw the conclusions, like because I honestly, it's not that I don't care, but it's kind of just I genuinely didn't think that far. Like I
Mm.
think people, I saw one comment that was like Frailty, Census, and Revenge are like a trilogy in the sense where it's like Frailty is like outside the house, and then Census is like the house is dilapidated, and then Revenge is like inside the house. It's like, girl, I'm not inside the house, but I like the thinking, but I like the like I will say like my fans have like vivid
Ah.
imaginations of their own. So I'm like, I like how creative you guys are. I don't really care. But
So there's we're not doing any kind of like house concepts here, is what you're
no,
saying.
not really. It's just vibes.
It's just fine.
It's just
Well,
vibes. Like
that's hey, and that's valid. That's totally valid. Off of that though, is there any kind of like symbolism or sort of worth noting in terms of like what you're trying to convey, or like what is being conveyed record to record between an album like Census Designated and the cover there and the cover here? Because obviously this record and the promo photos behind it and everything like that, you've got all the flames going, you've got like the flame sword, you look like a badass fucking character from an action movie who's maybe got like some pyro magic going on. Like, what exactly is kind of like the analogy there for you with this record? Is it just like a visual that's supposed to match the energy of the music, or is it like something deeper than that?
I mean, like honestly, like it was kind of just what I imagined when I was making it. The same way, like it doesn't really have any relation to like what I've done in the past. I was kind of just like, this is what I picture when I make this music. Even with like the cover art, I was kind of just like, yeah, there needs to be like me and a sword and fire in some capacity. And then like my friend Brendan, who did like all the photography for the album, he was like, say less. So it was like kind of a collaborative effort.
Were there any close calls or anything with the proximity to the flames and just the process of getting the flames going and posing with the sword or anything, or getting it
Oh
going?
yeah, no, I burnt my hair to a crisp, low key. It's good now because like my hair is like that was like what 3 months ago I shot the album cover, so it was like it's okay now.
Okay,
But
so yeah, you're totally uh, uh, back on your usual shit hair wise then.
yeah,
Um, okay, so uh, to kind of dig back into the samples and references a little bit more, and maybe it's not like sort of in the sense that there is like um, kind of a trilogy going on here per se, um, but when you're kind of like going over maybe older pieces of your work, be it a musical piece or like obviously an altered version of an older producer tag, something like that, and kind of putting it into something that you're doing, are you going over these chunks and bits in the same way that you might random sounds that you're collecting? Or when you grab these pieces, is there like an intentional kind of narrative behind it? Especially considering like, there are recurring themes on this record that people might catch on previous records, even though the sound is very different, because we see you again kind of like exploring and kind of like meditating on your own fame and the point of life where you're at and stuff like that. When you're making these or creating these kind of sample and musical references too, are you also kind of calling back to that in a way as well? Or is it just like mostly a sonic kind of tingle that you're getting from these ideas when you reuse them?
I guess it's kind of both because like this album like it is kind of a reflection of everything that's like everything I've done up until this point. So I guess not coincidentally, but like by proxy, I guess like this is kind of like I'm sampling this because it has like meaning to it, and it's like the fans will recognize it, but it's like it's not really like that. It's kind of just like I was sitting on like so much unreleased music from last year because
Mm.
like Revengeseekerz was my third attempt at making a third album. So I just had like so much other shit to like sample. That was my own work. And I was like, I'm not gonna get I'm not gonna get in trouble um with publishing or anything because it's like this is my music I'm sampling. So it was like my little cheat code in a way.
Oh,
But
got it. Okay.
yeah, because like honestly, like I still like I love all those ideas that I still had. It's just like I just didn't want to put it out because it's like this the song itself is not good enough, but it's like I'll like take a little like 4 bar like instance of the song. Honestly, like it's put through shitty filters too. So it's like nobody could even tell it's me at low key like that. Like the Angels and Camo sample, like at the end, like that, it's a sample of me, but it's been through so much shit. Like
you're kind of saying like this is it's a creative endeavor, but simultaneously this is also a way for you to sort of like save yourself a headache and avoid any
yeah,
kind of like legal troubles in a way.
subconsciously, yeah.
This record, you're kind of like referring to it in a way to where it is super catchy to a certain ear, and it is obviously like much more, let's say, hook driven than maybe your last couple of projects. But simultaneously, like it is overloaded in such a way to where it is like very abrasive and it is really overwhelming. And I guess like, was it your direction or intention from the beginning to make a record that was hitting more in one way or more the other, where you're like, I want to make the most wild, out there, most layered, most overwhelming album I've ever put out? Or were you kind of like gearing more toward, I got to make my catchiest album, like make my hookiest album, make my most pop centric album?
Honestly, it was neither, because like
Mm,
the like my second attempt at the third album was like honestly a combination of both. It was like both my most hook driven and my most accessible.
mm,
Um, and like I reused like half, if not most of the ideas from that album like on here, but I was like creatively, like this album, Revengeseekerz, like I kind of just like shut my brain off. I was on autopilot the entire time. So I was kind of just like, here's my album. And then I like blink and it's like, oh, the song is done. And it sounds like this.
when you say autopilot, were you like, were you second guessing yourself too much and kind of getting in your own way, or was there something else like kind of making the process slower that you needed to lock in on?
I think like, yeah, because or at least with Census, like I was sitting on these songs for so long.
Hmm.
And then like all the songs on Revengeseekerz are either like one or two studio sessions. So it was like, I think the fact that I wasn't thinking as much about it like made me more confident in it. And it was, I think that helped me in the long run, because it's like, I'm like, of course I'm listening to these songs a lot, or like not so much now because it's out, but it's like when I was making this album, I was listening to it like all day, every day. But I wasn't like trying to figure out how how to change it or like how to fix it or anything. Cause it was like, I was kind of listening to it as if like somebody else had made it. Cause that's honestly, like when the album was done and like I was listening to it after we had like already submitted it to stores, and I was like, this doesn't sound like, not that it doesn't sound like I made it, but it's like the music almost sounded like foreign to me.
Mm.
Cause I guess I was just like, not like, cause I guess autopilot is not like the wrong word to use, but I was just so, for lack of better terms, like locked in on making it. I was just like, oh, and then one day the album's done and I listened to it and it's kind of exactly how I thought it would, like how I thought it would be from the start. But it was also, how did we get here? Because it was so fast. I don't know, so much, but so little.
No, that's it's kind of interesting to hear you put it in that way, I guess, because with it sounding foreign to you, and maybe to other listeners, it might come across that way if maybe their familiarity with you is like, maybe they just kind of came into your music this year and the only other record they've heard is Census, or maybe it's the Venturing record that came out like a little while ago. And then to transition over to this, it's like, this wildly different world sonically, and lyrically too. And I wanted to sort of like ask you about one of the major contrasts with this record with your previous stuff. And I feel like on some level that is the words. And I sort of wanted to know if like you feel like you put on a different mindset or voice when you're writing songs for a project like Venturing, or even, like with your last record, Census Designated, as opposed to here when you're sort of like coming up with lines that are maybe a little bit more braggadocious, when you're saying stuff like Jesus never had it with a freak bitch. I feel like within the context of a Venturing, that's like not necessarily a line that you would drop quite in that fashion,
Yeah.
So
no,
like,
yeah.
what headspace do you sort of put yourself in for a project like this, where you're like, it's, lyrically it's going this way, because it seems like so vastly different from what you've recently sort of like written and released.
Yeah. I mean, partially like I wanted to troll a little bit with the lyrics, like not in the sense where it's like, oh, I think this is funny and I think people will laugh. I think it's just like, I think this is hard. And it would also be like, how funny would this be to like have a sea of people like say it back to me? You know what I mean? Like I was saying this like to my manager, like it was like a zestiness quota for the album. I was like, every song needs to have a zesty bar on the album, like so that it, I guess it's, I don't know. Okay, it does kind of pull you in a little bit. It's like, oh, why did they say that? Like,
Yeah, I mean, hearing hearing that back in your own music or reading it or even hearing people react to it or me say it, like, does it feel like an out of body moment? You're like, that doesn't even feel like me who said that.
I mean, like it is a little bit embarrassing, but it's like not like embarrassing, but it's like I can't help but laugh. You know what I mean?
Right. No, it is. I mean, it is funny,
It is funny.
it is wild and it is over the top. And obviously, like, the energy there is intentional. And when you take it in context with everything else that you're saying on the record, and yeah, when you look at it that way, there is kind of like a bit of a spicy bar quota in terms of, there being a certain level of like wild shit that you're willing to say or sort of like confrontational stuff. I guess, I just wanted to know is, going into a track like this, outside of like a zesty bar quota, do you feel like you're putting on a different, I don't know, personality or sort of like emotional rubric at all to kind of put yourself in the space where you're like, I don't know, a line like Jesus never had it with a freak bitch even pops up in your head?
I don't know, not really. Cause like, I think the difference between like my older music and like this album is like, all the other previous albums are like seeking approval or like just craving approval, and it's like now I not necessarily don't want the approval, or like not that I don't have the approval, but it's kind of just like my mind is not like, for the most part, I'm not like seeking validation or like approval from anybody else now, especially because like even when I was like making this album and I was mixing it, I was telling my manager, like, I like your input is like appreciated and is valid, but I'm not gonna listen to you. Like, I literally, this was like the first time around, like I didn't ask anybody any questions, and then nobody asked me any questions like regarding this album. I just like I made it, and then I sent it, and I was like, hey, here's the album, let's put it out.
So, in the process of making this, or maybe like the couple of previous iterations of your third record, were you getting instances of feedback along whatever lines that you felt like weren't helpful? Or for this project going into it, did you already have that kind of energy where you're like, I'm just going to make this. I don't want to hear what anybody's saying. Like, I need to shut out all outside opinions to make this.
No, yeah, it was kind of like that, especially because like, and this is like it's unrelated, but it is kind of just like in the Jane Remover like timeline. It is like I made this album like immediately after I came back from the JPEG tour, and then I finished it like probably a month and a half ago at this point.
One other question that I had in terms of like the mode that you're in creatively with this record and your previous projects too, which obviously have their own different directions and flavors and kind of musical palettes. When you're going from project to project, especially with, the musical inspirations going into it being so different, does your musical diet change at all along the lines with your creative process? Like in the lead up to a project like this, maybe it's a bit too obvious to say, but like, are you finding yourself listening to more pop and hip hop and like hard style and stuff like that going into a record like this? Or, when you're making a venturing album, are you listening to more lo-fi indie rock, or do you just like have this stuff ingrained into you as like a music fan, and you just have this like, idea for a certain direction in your head and you just go for it?
This is gonna sound so like, but it's like, when I'm like making an album, like it's the only thing I listen to is like that album.
Is the album.
So like, yeah. So like when I wasn't making music, honestly, like, I don't know, last summer, there was like low-key like a Luther Vandross summer for me. So I was listening to a lot of Luther Vandross. I started listening to like more Dijon than usual. Than usual. Because I love Dijon, but like now I just listen to it more. Trying to think. I think like because I got my rap back and I was like my top songs
Hmm.
because it is just kind of like my top genre every year is like usually just pop, like or like it'll be like pop, rap, electronic, like every single year it's like the same, honestly. But I think I think my top song last year on my rap was Miranda Cosgrove "Oh." If you know that one, it's like it samples like the like the song Dilemma by Nelly, like the that
Oh, it
one.
samples that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
hmm
All right.
It's low key genius. I was like putting all my friends onto it, but that was my top song last year. And I still love that song, but
Yeah, someone in chat just said you're a visionary. I don't entirely disagree. Um, yeah, finding inspiration in the most unexpected places. There's another line, and maybe this is a part of like the zestiness and just kind of like the energy that you're trying to maintain on a project like this. There's at least a bar or two that kind of stands out where you kind of make a bold proclamation about like people biting your sound.
ooh.
Not asking you to call anybody out, but like, I wanted to
Wait,
verify.
let me start beef.
Okay. Oh shit.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm just joking, but
No, I feel like, without starting beef, I guess I wanted to know, like, if in fact you do feel like that is the case and, in your own opinion, what do you feel like that sound is? And what do you feel, ideas, be it in the underground, the mainstream, be it on more recent works or even going back to Frailty, that you feel like you helped popularize, that you now hear there out and about in like the ether now, and you're like listening to new music around maybe in the internet space?
I think honestly, I think Dariacore is more influential than anything.
Okay.
Because it's like I think it's partially because like I've like, I've kind of done like an around the world with music. Obviously I haven't hit all the slots yet. I haven't made my metal album yet, but I want to like, but I think like partially since this is kind of like a return to like the Dariacore sound and like the digicore, like the even pre-frailty stuff, like this is like
right.
a return to that. I think it's just like since I've kind of done so many different things, it's like people kind of forgot that like this is where I started.
Right.
So like that's why like when I first dropped like JR, people were like, this is just derivative, like this is just biting, and it's like, oh, this is how I know you weren't there. Like, but I see it most with like Dariacore, honestly, like just like the sporadic like EDM and the percussion, But I do also see it in like the early digicore shit, because that's making a comeback.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And like I don't know, I don't think obviously there are people who are like inspired by like Frailty and Census, and like, but it's normally like I don't see it like as popular as like the Dariacore like inspiration shit,
Mm. It does seem like you are like not in a derivative way, but like it does seem like in a way though you are trying to, with the production on this album, stay conscious of like a lot of modern trends in pop and hip hop, just outside of like whether or not you may be connected to it through your early work in some way. Like, is there a certain level of intent here in terms of like, I want to gravitate toward this because this is kind of like a prevailing sound and I think I could put an interesting spin on it, or maybe hook some listeners who wouldn't have maybe considered me otherwise for maybe one of my more rock oriented records or something like that? Like, do you see this as an album that could potentially be a gateway to what you do, given that there are like some trendier ideas on it?
Like maybe, because I feel like I didn't have a jerk song before Start People, but then there's also like it's a jerk song with like 30-second, like 1 30-second hi-hats, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like it's definitely not like a typical jerk song, but it's like it's still a jerk song that I didn't have in my discography before, because it's like, yeah, like this is kind of a return to like what I was doing like 4.5 years ago at this point, but it's like the underground has changed so much in the past 4.5 years. It's like if I straight up like go back to doing what I was doing, like it's just gonna sound washed and dated. But I think also it's just like, I don't know, not to be like I'm different. I'm built different, but like I don't know. I feel like just subconsciously I was kind of like I just did it different. I don't know.
Where do you even feel like, as somebody who's obviously in their own way conscious of it and a product of it, where do you feel like the underground is even at anymore? Because I feel like between the platforms that people are usually consuming their music on these days and the way a lot of underground music scales currently on the internet and just the way social media works at the moment, it just sort of feels like whatever is an underground has sort of like been eliminated at this point. And it's all sort of like, you know, in the same pen, whether we want it to be or not, whether it's something mainstream, whether it's something more obscure. Like, do you even feel like there is a barrier between the underground and the mainstream at this point? You know, what even defines underground at the moment for you?
I don't know honestly, because it's like like I agree with you that the line between like underground and mainstream is like getting more blurred by the day
Hmm.
because it's like it's if you have like 2 million monthly listeners and like people are still calling you underground, or it's like I remember like 3 years ago or something, like when Yeet had like 10 million monthly listeners and people were like, he's still underground, like is he the most famous out of the underground? And it's like I guess, but it's like I don't know, did people call like it's like you gotta ask yourself like when, and this might not be the best example, but this is just like something that I can think of because it's like when like at the peak of like XXXTentacion's fame, like did people call him underground? Yes or no? And honestly, I
Hmm.
don't remember because I was like that was so long ago. But it's like I guess that's one way to.
I feel like at that point, people weren't quite using the term in the same way that they are now. I mean, I've seen a lot of younger people talk about some of these rappers that they refer to as underground, with like 2 million monthly listeners being like the cutoff. And once you go past that point, you're kind of like not a part of the underground anymore. But like, I mean, I listen to rappers that have way more monthly listeners than that. And, you know, to me, like the 2 million monthly listener like line feels like such an arbitrary cutoff at
No, yeah,
that point.
especially because like how digital everything is now, and
Right.
like 2 million, like yeah, that's 2 million people, but it's like how it's not like 2 million people that are all gonna like come see you play. You know what I mean?
There are people
Like
who have 11 million monthly Spotify listeners that can't sell out a tour. So there's also kind of that, you
no,
know?
yeah, like I hate to like bring up numbers, but it's like, you know what I mean? That was just what like that was just my way of saying like what is the underground? Like how like what even is like underground anymore, you know?
Right.
Because you're right,
Right.
like no numbers don't really say anything, but it's like
Hmm. With you know, these references to older stuff and your creative process leading up to this album, I wanted to ask, and I know there are some fans like curious, especially with like um, recently released singles like Magic, for example, that you know a lot of your listeners really love. You know, is there sort of like in the works a potentially a record coming out of songs that sort of like hit kind of in that direction? Was that track sort of like a part of other material that might have been released at some point before you decided to change your mind? Like, what were maybe these previous attempts at making this third album looking like that made you decide to sort of like scrap them?
well, okay, because like that the album that like songs like Magic and like Flash in the Pan, like the album that those tracks are on, like I think when people hear that I scrapped it, they're like, oh well, it's deleted and I can't get it back. It's like, no, these files are like sitting pretty on my phone.
Yeah.
Like I still listen to them all the time. Like me and my friends, like we all have really good memories regarding this because it's like I was making this album last summer and like all of like a couple of my friends had like access to it and we were just like talking about it all the time. It's like this is like the Chicago summer album. And I was like, I don't know. I still like all those songs like a lot. It's just like I just feel like now is not the right time for me to put it out. Like
Hmm.
so like I'll probably finish it and put it out. It's just like I just don't want to do it like right now, you know?
Hmm. And you know, do you feel like that's to do with sort of like your mood or the time period or where you feel like fans might receive it in your discography? Because you said this album sort of
Mm,
like fits within a certain context of your music. And earlier you were saying like, and maybe at some point I'll come out with my metal album, you know,
yeah.
you know, is there sort of like, something to your intention here that's kind of like, I want to keep people on their toes, and if I put out a record like this right now, it wouldn't surprise people in the way maybe I want it to?
Yeah, I mean, because like Flash in the Pan was like that was the first song I put out after Census. So like that was already kind of like a shift in sound.
Right.
But honestly, I kind of part of me just wanted to troll and like not put it out and just be like, hey, here's a Digicore album instead. But the other part of me was just like, it was a gut feeling, honestly, because it's like the album, like that Scrapped album is like it's not done at all. Like I would like if I were to put it out, I would kind of want to do like a redo of like pretty much everything, but keep the ideas and like the structure. But like I think honestly, I kind of just wanted to like, yeah, keep them on their toes, kind of, especially because it was like if I put out that album instead of Revengeseekerz, I think not that it wouldn't have been received as well, but I think it's not as divisive at all. And I think this album is kind of divisive, and it's like kind of like me and my little like, not to be like not like a pop star attitude or anything, but it's like this will get people talking. And it's like, like the Scrapped album, like it's really good and I love it a lot, and it would probably do just as well, if not better, if I put it out. But it's just like people wouldn't be talking like that. People would just be like, look at this collection of cute little songs. Wow, my summer.
Okay.
But like and there's a time and place for that, but it's just like it's not right now, you know?
Okay. Fair. You know, one of the things that people are talking about the most on this record, and one of the things that could be seen as polarizing about it is the production. You know, Digicore stuff like this, I wouldn't say I'm like super intimately familiar with like the creative process. I wanted to ask you, and you talked about sort of like the process of creating and recording this album being done in a very quick kind of like fashion. Does that also encompass the time taken to like produce these very intense instrumentals on this record? Because it seems like, at least from an outsider perspective, that there's just so much going on in terms of the amount of sounds on any given song. Like, again, presuming the process, like what is the multi-track looking like on a track like this? Are there like 60 layers on top of each other and it's all like sort of just firing on all cylinders all at once? Or is there like more of a methodology to it where you're like carefully placing in each piece like in a puzzle so that there's like balance there?
I think like it's a little bit of both, because some of these songs like Turn Up or Die has like probably 105 stems probably. But like but I think
I didn't want to guess that level, but yeah, it does kind of sound like it.
But I think because I really was insistent on mixing this album, that I was like, I have to get it right, because I can't hand this album to somebody else. Like it has to be how I want it to sound. And like I think partially like I've just been like teaching myself how to mix over the years, and like I was like mixing for my friends early on. But I think when in an album like, as I guess for lack of better words, like complex, like I feel like nobody else can kind of touch it except for me. That's why it's like there's like the only collaboration on this album like in any aspect is like Danny's feature.
Right.
And it's literally because I texted him and I was like, do you want to be on my song? And he was like, yeah, send it over.
Was there anything that were there any sort of like challenges or sort of like learning experiences, some new knowledge that was kind of gained in the process of making this album because of how particular you probably had to be through the mixing process? Like you're talking about assembling together a lot of different sounds that a lot of producers probably wouldn't conceive of putting together in most normal music contexts. And yet you're in this very experimental, very abrasive album trying to have to figure out on the fly. There's no handbook for this shit. I imagine you have to figure out on the fly, like, how do I make all of this make sense? How do I make it so noisy, but like, and you know, I think this is a testament to how well you mixed it. Like, as chaotic as it is, I feel like I could pick out every sound. Like, it doesn't just sound like a big blob. Like, I feel like I can make out a vast majority of the sounds separately that you're putting together on this, again, very chaotic album. And I guess I wanted to know, like, to what do you attribute your ability to do that? Because it doesn't just sound like pure chaos. There is sort of like layers and details, and it does feel like things are kind of placed carefully a lot of the time.
I don't know what it's called, because like my manager calls it gain staging, I guess, with just like adjusting the volume, but it's like, I don't know any of the terms for anything. Like, this is why I still use FL. Like, I still kind of have the same setup as I did.
You're doing all this in FL?
What? Why do you say it like that?
I'm not. It's not embarrassing. It's impressive. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But
no.
No, yeah, because I just never taught myself anything else. Like, I have Ableton. And like, I know how to use it, but it's like, I don't trust myself to make a full album in Ableton. You know what I mean?
Work with what you're comfortable in.
I know. It's just like,
if you have ideas in your head and through the tool you're using, you feel like you can actually execute them and it's coming out the way that you intend. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's FL.
But no, it low-key is like, hardware wise, it is like kind of a nightmare, because FL is like not the best with handling such big project files. But like,
so you're giving yourself a learning curve on purpose.
Yeah, that's like me editing my videos in Sony Vegas. Like,
it was the first video program I ever did a YouTube video in.
Really? Wait, when were you using Vegas?
Like in the late 2000s.
That's crazy. I've been using Vegas like probably for like 10 years at this point. Because I never like, I know how to use like Adobe Premiere, but like, again, I like Vegas more. I know how to use Vegas more, so I just use it. Like,
right. Yeah,
I'm too stubborn.
I really hated moving from Vegas to Final Cut when I did eventually make that transition. But yeah, that was I did miss kind of just using it. There's something to sort of like sticking with whatever program you originally learned on. There's a familiarity there, and it's sort of like, just, you know, you don't want to fuck up your creative flow by having to learn something new.
No, yeah, I think like the only times I have used Ableton, honestly, is just like for the live show. Because it's easier to just like send it out to like the sound people. But like, other than that, like, I'm a FL soldier all the way. Okay. And I think mixing this album in FL, like, definitely, because this album's already like, the mixing is really unorthodox. And like, it's very sweet that you think it's good, but I think like, honestly, it's just like, again, not much thought put into it. It was kind of just, what do they call it? Flow state. This is just flow state, I guess. Just
flow state creativity. I get it. Yeah. Yeah. Which you need for FL Studio. I understand. Aside from, you know, touring behind this music that you've just put out, are there any other sort of like big musical or release plans that you have this year? I know you tend to be very prolific, always recording, always creating.
That is a good question. Because honestly, like, I don't know. Because I do have like, I already have so many ideas for the future, but it's like, I don't know if I'm going to like act upon it. Because I know like when I came home from tour and I was like, I'm going to take a break. And then I didn't take a break and I was like, oh, let me make 2 albums in 5 months. So it was like, definitely not that. So, because I think since this album has been turned in and it's come out, it's like, yeah, like I'm still doing music and I'm like, but I'm not working on anything new. I think it's just like, I just do music for fun.
Right.
So I'll probably, I have no clue. I have no plans, honestly, but I'm so excited to play this live, because the one thought that I did have, like, making this album, I was like, this album has to go crazy live. So we'll see, because like, I think you have
multiple lines about turning up on the record. I would hope so.
Turning up and dying, but hopefully don't die at my show, because it's not cute.
Right. Yeah. No, that would put a damper on things.
Yeah, but but I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think honestly, the first show like that I'm playing these songs is like in a week. So
Mhm.
we'll see.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to the forthcoming pop album and metal album. Maybe a combination
Yeah.
of both. A double LP,
Ooh,
metal pop
ooh,
double LP. That get people
maybe. I
talking.
don't know. I feel
Yeah.
like that's like, I don't know. I leave that to Poppy, not me.
Yeah.
Bro, I
Uh,
fucking love Poppy. I was like,
the new song Baby Metal is really good.
ooh, I haven't heard that one yet, but like I remember like the when I first like moved out here, I think the week I moved out here, like I saw Poppy and it was like one of the first shows that like I not the first shows that I've been to, but it's just like one of the first shows I like went to here and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, core memory. But I love Poppy so much. I've been a fan of her for like 10 years at this point.
Yeah. No, she's been doing what she's doing for a while. I mean, she's like really kind of like ingrained into the metal world at this point.
It's crazy to like watch her from start to now.
Hmm. No, it's true. And you as well.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm on like year 4 of this, so
You know, there's still time. You're still doing your thing. Jane,
this is true.
Thank you for coming through. Thank you for talking
Yeah,
about
as
the record.
always.
Thank you for letting me into the creative process. And thank you for coming back around. You know, you could have been like, oh, Fantano, I did that interview way back when. I don't need to do that again. You know,
No,
don't
I
worry
low
about
key
it.
I wanted to do another one because I was like that because like the last one, I was like, I was in my college dorm, like the lights were off, like, ooh,
Yeah,
not a good look.
it was a totally different time period. Also like pandemic era. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was
All
a
right.
time.
It was a time. All right. You're the best. Thank you again. And maybe I'll see you out at one of these dates. So we'll see.
Yes.
I know
Wait,
everyone in chat's
come.
going to try to come through. So,
Oh yeah. And then they're gonna be like, Anthony Fantano spotted in public?
oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll learn to act normal this time.
No, yeah, but you should come.
Yeah. No, I should. All right.
Okay.
Have a good rest of your day. And
Yes,
I'll
you
talk to you
too.
later.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.